Jabroni, Jabronixyz, oh, it doesn't matter, you spell jabroni.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new episode of Two Jabronis with a Wrestling Podcast. BJ Cruz here with my tag team partner, the man who put on the gift that I got for him right away, and I don't think has taken it off since, the incomparable Jeremy Loss. Jay, what's up, dude?
The shirt fits great. I also have the Ham and Slam one that you got me that I was debating on wearing today.
So we'll save that for another show.
Next week I'll wear the Ham and Slam shirt. It's an incredible shirt.
There you go. We are, of course, brought to you by the Blue Wire Network and our friends over at Bet Online. Usually this is the time that we spend bantering, asking how each other's doing, how we're doing. We're still freaking quarantined. How do you think we're doing? I got a haircut today. It looks like you got a haircut. For those of us on the video pod. But let's just jump right into it. We got a lot to talk about this week. So with that, let's hop into the main event. And for this week's main event, we have a very, very special guest on, a member of the Blue Wire family, specifically the Blue Wire Wrestling Pod Squad. I coined that term. We're making shirts. We're going to distribute it all around the country. My man, Double G, Garrett Gonzalez from the Fight Game Podcast. Is it okay that I used your full name, by the way? Because usually you just drop the Double G on the pod, and I'm like, is it?
You know how many Gonzaleses there are in this world for people to kind of look me up. No, but thanks for bringing me on, man. Like I've been, we've been trying to connect and trying to get together. I mean, just the fact that there are other wrestling podcasts that kind of take the audio thing seriously. Like I legitimately dig listening to you guys. So happy to be here, man.
No, we appreciate it. We're big fans of your show as well. And it's, again, when we heard more wrestling shows were joining Blue Wire, Jay and I were legitimately excited because we felt like the black sheep of the family. Everyone's like, there was 95 NBA pods, 75.
You've just explained wrestling fandom in a nutshell.
No, totally. Absolutely. 1,000%. So once you guys join, and obviously we have so many more now, CVV is with the squad, Ryan Drosty and Top Rope Nation. So it's been fantastic. The reason why we wanted to have you on is let's not bury the lead. Let's not bury the lead, but let's sort of bury the lead. Today was it was a rough day as a wrestling fan. A lot of releases, layoffs, however you want to frame it, in WWE. We'll kind of talk about that at the back end of this conversation. The reason why we wanted to have you on was specifically some Ronda Rousey stuff. So she kind of riled up all of wrestling Twitter, wrestling fans.
She does a very good job at that.
In general, right, which is partially why I wanted to have you on, because you and Jeremy have extensive MMA knowledge, so you obviously have followed her career very, very closely. And I guess I just wanted so first of all, if you haven't seen the comments, they came off pretty disparaging about pro wrestling and WWE in general. My first question to you both, and is it a work? Is she working us?
So here's what I was told. I was told that Ronda was bored, like we're all bored. She did an interview, and she was very complimentary toward the business of pro wrestling and the women who she worked with and who kind of brought her into that sorority, that WWE family. The only thing she had an issue with, and this is not only with WWE fans, this is her MMA career too, is the fans. She feels that fans in general are disloyal. They love you when you're on the way up, and then, they don't love you when you're on the way down. But she also is very smart, and she knew the exact word to use for the wrestling blogs to cover her interview.
Right.
And it is that everlasting F word, right? Fake. The second she said that, she knew she was going to get a little bit of coverage out of this, which is exactly what happened. And then people will, if they were kind of paying attention, she started doing a couple tweets. And from what I understand, literally she was just goofing off. And, she knows how to incite. WWE fans in general are very hardcore loyalists. Sometimes I call them apologists in a very non-negative way. They just come to the defense of WWE. So, you saw some of the talent, right? Some of the talent was like, how am I going to react? Because if she's for real coming back, I would love to be the one doing business with her, because that means
a lot of money,
more prestige, more money. You're on Raw more. You're in one of the main event programs, and so you saw a couple of people chime in, and the one that kind of overdid it a little bit was Nia Jax, and she came off kind of looking like a goofball, because from what I understand, Ronda's never going to come back full time, but I fully expect her to be at WrestleMania next year if there's a WrestleMania in LA, right?
Sure.
Like that's where, that's her town. And if Rock's going to be there and Austin's going to be there, Ronda's got to be there. Like that will be a thing that she will most likely do. Now, will she do a program? Hopefully she could do something. That would be the time to do it. But yeah, from everything I've been told, she was just kind of bored, kind of goofing off, and probably interested in the reactions too, because she's pretty savvy when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, she's super savvy when it comes to her media side of things, but she is super thin-skinned as well.
Oh yeah.
She does not take criticism well at all. I was under the assumption that this was a work. I think she even said it on Twitter. She was like punching a Hulk Hogan doll, saying it was a work. I fully expect her to come back by WrestleMania. They need to do the Becky Lynch match, the one-on-one match. And I think that's what they'll end up doing. I think there's a lot of money there. So I think eventually she'll come back, won't be full time. But they'll do a program probably after Royal Rumble leading into WrestleMania. I think there's too much money there, and it makes too much sense for her not to show up, or for her to show up at WrestleMania 37 in LA if it happens. I mean, there was talk today that LA or mass gatherings in California might not happen in 2021. So we don't even know if that's going to happen.
Jeez.
Craziness. And if you sometimes I like to compare the fighters to athletes that we know and really understand. Like, when Ronda is at her peak, and really, women's MMA, when she was at her peak, the sport in of itself was very much like the early UFC, where if you had one dominant skill set and that dominant skill set was better than the other dominant skill sets, you could easily win fights. Like we saw that in the entire history of the UFC, until all of these fighters started training the multiple disciplines and just got good at everything. Then it just kind of turns into a boxing match, or a kickboxing match. But when Ronda was going good, and when she was using her judo, and she was winning all those fights in less than a minute, I would compare her to someone like Kobe. Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. But someone like Kobe, who didn't really he wasn't there to get the fanfare. He just wanted to win so desperately. And sometimes that made him a fan favorite. Sometimes that made him a complete jerk. And when Ronda was sort of rising up to the top, that's kind of how I looked at her, was kind of like the Kobe of women's MMA. But, the evolution of MMA in general as a sport, because it evolves so quickly, there are very few fighters who can stay on top for very long. John Jones is one of them. He's like the guy right now. But because of the evolution of the athletes and the disciplines, and there's so many variables in MMA, it's so hard to have a lengthy career. And obviously you're taking damage, right? Like right. Your physicality and your athleticism, it's taking a hit like constantly. So, she at her peak, she's like Kobe, but when she's already been figured out, she's just like any other athlete who's sort of lost their skill set or lost their step, or all of a sudden it's become a lesser athlete. And that's hard. That's hard for any athlete that we watch. As Warriors fans or as 49er fans or whatever, we have knowledge of players who we really, really loved. And then, as they got up in age and they weren't as good, like it's going to happen to Steph, right? At some point, Steph Curry.
It's actually never going to happen to Steph.
But at some point, Steph Curry he evolves into a more, I mean, he kind of is like the Steve Nash on steroids, but he kind of evolves into more of a savvier player using tricks who can still shoot the lights out, and that he'll evolve at that point. But for Ronda, it just happens so fast. So imagine you're the most popular fighter in the game. You're so adored. Dana White is prompting you everywhere, and then you lose, and then you lose again, and it's basically done. Like that's got to be hard to take. And so Jeremy's right that she's a sore loser. That's also what made her great. But it's also just this part of her, which is like, I was indestructible, and now I'm not even a top 5 women's fighter.
It's jarring when you go back and watch her last fight, which I was actually cage side for, and you see the skill disparity between her and Amanda Nunes. Like her striking for a while there, people were comparing, like saying like she could be a boxer because she knocked out Betch Correia in 90 seconds and she roughed up Misha Tate for a while. Mm-hmm. Like people were like really high on her striking skills. And then you saw her against Holly Holm get pieced up for 3 rounds. And then when you saw her against Amanda Nunes, you're like, holy cow, this is like not even the same ballpark. Like it was bad. And I rewatched it and I was like, she's lucky she lasted 40 seconds in that fight. She was getting hurt real bad. So to kind of shift back into wrestling, I do like she's a natural. I think we can all agree that when it came to the in-ring work, she was pretty damn good from the jump. Though there were stories going around that she was responsible for hurting Alexa Bliss for a while, and I think that's part of the reason why Nia was quick to jump at like potentially like having a fight with her, is because she's so protecting of Alexa Bliss. But
bad idea though, by the way. Really bad idea.
Yeah. But and I also find it funny that Nia is like complaining about somebody else hurting a coworker when she like hurt Becky Lynch. But I would love to see her back because she is so natural at it in the ring. Like she was really, really good. So I'm hoping that she finds it in her again to step back in and at least give it a go for a few months. Like you said, I don't think she's ever coming back full time. I don't think it's in her. But
okay, so this is a question for both of you. Knowing you guys watched her entire run in 18 and early 19, what do you bring her back as? If you bring her back against Becky, she's more than likely the heel. But I feel like they have such few opportunities to actually get people cheered like crazy. Her first time back, she's going to get cheered like crazy, like a babyface. But if she's up against Becky, then she automatically becomes the de facto heel. How would you guys bring her back?
I like her as a heel. She had some moments during her run where she came off a little heelish, and she's pretty good. She can get people to hate her. It's obvious. She can get people to hate her. So I actually like her as a heel. I would actually like it if they did the 4 horsewomen versus 4 horsewomen and allow her to be a heel faction with Shayna and Jessamine and Marina. I think that would be great. And I think that'd be an interesting way to use her. And you can, if she doesn't want to come back full time and not put in full effort, you can hide her a little bit and let Shayna do the heavy lifting. So I think heel would be great.
Yeah.
As far as we know, Jess and Marina are still on the roster. There were tons of people in the same boat as them, and it doesn't sound like they've been let go.
Right.
I'm sure there's still stuff to come out, but they're still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm in the same boat there because during her run, I mean, the back end, she kind of shifted to that heel role a little bit, kind of going at the crowd, going at Becky, going at Charlotte. But toward the beginning, she had that like white meat baby face feel like around her, that aura, if you will. And like, it just didn't feel as natural, right? Like, cause she's not super great on the mic. Right. And I think that's one of the, unless you're Braun Strowman who can kind of get by on like 3 different words, like you kind of need to be able to talk in order to get over that much as a babyface. As a heel, you can kind of play the hits, right? And you can kind of be hated, and like she kind of already has a pre-written script to be a really, really good heel when she comes back, right? She can use this and kind of just take it to the next level. So that's where I'd want to see her anyway, because I don't think we saw enough of it personally. It was just whenever she tried too hard on the mic, her greenness, if you will, just kind of like showed more than it should, because in the ring she was pretty much a natural, right? Like she had her bumps here and there, but there were those moments whenever she would cut a promo where she was definitely trying too hard. where it took me out of it, and I hated that. I hated that fact that like I got taken out because I was rooting for her so hard to just succeed in general. So I think that's where I'm at.
And I agree, and that's one of those things where she's a better promo when she doesn't have to be scripted.
Yep.
But when she isn't scripted, her best promos are going to be 30 seconds or 45 seconds, right? Because that's where she's going to get to the core of what she wants to say. And in WWE, that's not what it is. You're out there for, a minute or two, and then something happens, and then you pick back up, and that is definitely that was not her strength as a performer. But that's also just sort of a byproduct of how WWE does business. And you're right, she's never going to be great at that part unless she was just, going strong for 3 years, right? Like you think about NXT and the Performance Center, like from day one, they are speaking and cutting promos and doing promo class and walking that ramp and, doing stuff in the ring that they're going to eventually do so that they could get those repetitions down. That's just not something that she's built for. She's not going to go do that. So yeah, you're right. She's not cut for that kind of like baby face long promo.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to kind of rewind a little bit back on was, you guys touched on the fact that, she's thin skinned and, those 2 knockouts kind of at the back end of her MMA career really did something to her. And I feel like that's kind of played into what's happening now, because it's like, I feel like Nia's response was a little much, right? It was a little extra. But then you read like someone's response, like Alexa Bliss, which was pretty well thought out. I thought, she didn't come back at Ronda. It was almost like a, hey, but like I thought we were cool type of response. And I feel like that all could have been squashed by Ronda, just kind of like, yo, if you want to put this out, if you're bored, you want to do this, that, and the third, that's totally fine, right? It's entertainment, but at least hit them up on the side and be like, yo, this is just the work, right? Like I'm just messing around. I hope you don't take it too personally. What do you think kind of the combination of her being thin-skinned, her really questioning the fans, is there a kind of like a mistrust already just kind of within her that prevented her from doing stuff like that kind of stopped it from getting out of control in a way?
So for someone like Ronda, and I think Brock is very similar, right? They walk into the back and they know where they came from. Brock, from collegiate wrestling and being an All-American and also being able to win a heavyweight championship in the UFC. And Ronda with her pedigree, Olympic, judoka. They can be a little testy and edgy, and they're also stars. So Vince McMahon is never going to necessarily ask them to play nice, right?
Right.
So I think they utilize that. They have that mind games thing where they know that they're going to be able to handle any situation physically, and it's almost like they're so competitive that they want to see the other wrestlers raise their game, and so it's quite possible, because I know Ronda's good friends with like Natty and the Bellas, and those, so it's quite possible that she did reach out to Alexa on the side or whomever on the side and just say, hey, I'm just goofing around here. But at the same time, Alexa and Nia and all these wrestlers, they're in this WWE ecosystem, right? Where if Ronda chirps, they could either take it for what it is, which is they know that she's not being serious, but the WWE ecosystem wants to see them, you can't let Ronda, say that without you barking back. And so they have to do it, but it's in such a, I'm going to use this word again, and Alexa may get mad. It's in such a fake way because we now know that it's part of the game. Because if this were, if Ronda was really mad at these women and they wanted to settle it, like it wouldn't happen. So, I just think for someone like Alexa, for someone like Nia, they do it because they know that's what they're supposed to do. And I'm sure that they both understand that, Ronda's Ronda and she's probably just goofing off and maybe building something, right? That's the other part of pro wrestling is a lot of the times when these guys or these women create, a little bit of hype, you don't really want to like give them the wink, wink, nod, nod, because then it becomes a fake story and you want it to be a competitive and sort of realistic thing.
Sure.
So if Ronda was to tell somebody, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I'm just kidding, then they're like, oh, I get it. Now I have to come up with something. And so you sometimes rather them reply sort of honestly, like you would if it was like a real thing. So I think it's a bunch of all of that stuff. But, WWE is a little interesting in just the way that they promote. And so, for Alexa, I think she answered it in the right way, which is, she was cool. We're cool. I just had a problem with the fake word. Why pro wrestlers in 2020 have a problem with the fake word, I have no idea. It's like the one thing like that just drives them crazy and makes them run through walls. When, I don't know when's the first time you were made fun of for watching a fake thing. I was probably like 10 and I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I like it anyways. Who cares? Like, that's how you're supposed to treat that thing.
Yeah.
But it just instigates them so much,
I still get those messages like, that's fake, right? I'm like, I don't care. Like, I know it is, and I don't care. I enjoy the shit out of it.
Yeah.
You know what else I love that's fake? Tom Cruise outrunning cars. Like, I love that stuff, you know?
Yeah, no, it's those messages usually come from people who are like, Thanos had a point. You're like, all right, dude, just you need to relax. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Ultimately, I do want to see Ronda back, and obviously it won't be in a full-time capacity, but just she brings a little je ne sais quoi, about her, around her when she comes to WWE. So she just makes the product more entertaining. I really think, Becky took her game to another level. I think just within herself, knowing
hasn't
that
been the same sense either.
Yeah,
right.
and she's tried.
It's a key point in this whole thing.
Yeah, she's tried to keep that up. And I don't think Vince is that stupid where he's like, he doesn't see that. So at some point they got to bring her back as Becky's foil. I want to pivot here a little bit and talk to you just a little bit about kind of what happened today. Obviously, a huge bummer with WWE releasing, I think it was like upwards of like 30. I lost count after a while. Not just wrestlers, some backstage producers, some referees were let go. I'll cast the wide net here. Just kind of general thoughts from your end. I know you're going to talk about this more on your pod, so feel free to just kind of, again, general thoughts. What was your initial reaction once you kind of heard all this was coming down and when it actually happened?
So I think this, if you've been following sort of the tea leaves, this begins with the XFL canceling.
Yep.
Shutting down completely, right?
Yep.
So if you think about how that whole thing went down, Vince McMahon supposedly has enough money to run for 3 years. That was the number that I had heard, was 3 years without making a dime. And he could invest that much money and try and get that TV deal. His current TV deals were really only paying for the production of the broadcast. And so you have 3 years, the WWE in general is just a cash cow. They have so much in their savings that, they're built for this kind of thing where, house shows are non-existent. I'm sure WWE Network buys are down. I'm sure WrestleMania was not a huge success on pay-per-view. So in these times, they have actually built their kiddie fund to where they're fine, 100% fine, no problems. So when the bankruptcy piece happened, I guess I don't know why I was surprised, and I think I was surprised because I just assumed Vince was going to cut his losses for that first year. He still got 2/3 of that money. He'll pay all the what he needs to pay, and then he'll just reinvest that money into his own company. Instead, they file for bankruptcy. And if you looked at the list of the creditors, there were like people who they only owed like $1,000 to, like some photographer who they hired. And she's on this list, and small pieces. There's I forget the company that the 49ers are part of, but they're on this list for a much larger sum of money than $1,000. But so that is their thing, and so the bankruptcy thing happens, and then I go, okay, that's a Vince move, it's a Donald Trump move, but I was I'm like, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. So then maybe it's even the same day. Our days are getting mixed up.
Yeah, it's all just
one day bleeds right into the other.
Yeah.
And then the thing comes out where they are now an essential business in Florida, so they can run all of their live TV shows. Raw was live. I think NXT was live as well. But so then we realized that I don't know if this was the main reason, the only reason, the biggest reason, but Linda McMahon is running the super PAC.
Yep.
And there's $18 million that's put into behind Donald Trump. So when you kind of look at that and you go, like, is that the reason why they're essential? Like, is this sort of a quid pro quo kind of thing where it's scratch my back and I'll scratch yours? And so it's starting to feel a little sleazy here. And then today, when they fired all of the folks that they did, in the back of my mind, I just had this thought, like, they're really built for this thing. I wonder why they're firing all of this talent, because they had just recently hired this talent to keep them away from AEW. A lot of them, not all of them. Some of them, they were already under contract. But you think about like the Mike Kanellis thing.
Yep.
You think about get Anderson and Gallows, like they were free agents at some point, and Vince is, signing people to 5-year deals to keep them away from AEW. And so when, there are smarter people than me looking into this, and Brandon Thurston, who's from WrestleNomics, he started, kind of digging in. And again, I haven't looked into these numbers as much as he has, but he was making some really interesting tweets. And one thing that he said was, look, a shelter in place or a shutdown like we're doing right now, it doesn't hurt WWE, because they're, like I said, they're built for this. What they might be doing is they might be cutting the costs so that they can still hit their revenue targets in 2020, which if that's the case, then you're like, oh my gosh, like all these poor people who are independent contractors, and you put them back into a market where nobody is going to be hiring because everyone's in the same shoes, and worse than WWE because they are not built to sustain this kind of thing.
Jesus.
And so far, AEW, Bellator, UFC, I haven't heard anything where they've fired any of the talent. So I don't know. It's all, if you can, I'm sure some of this is just me being super negative and not giving WWE the benefit of the doubt, because I've seen so much, and then they also had the COVID positive from one of their talent.
Yeah.
And the timeline on that thing kind of seemed a little interesting. It kind of comes out, after WrestleMania is over. So, there's lots of things going on there. And, I don't want to be negative about them, but, when you look at this stuff and you kind of see, I talked to somebody from talent today who was on that list of folks to be relieved of their duties. And I was just wondering about the furlough versus who gets fired. And this person was saying, like, look, even people who we may think get furloughed, they may not be full-time. So you can't get furloughed if you're not a full-time employee. Right. So, there's lots of stuff there, and it's frustrating and it's sad. And I think it's probably not good for anybody, mentally to just crap on WWE, but it is kind of sad to see something like this happen when they are such a successful business that they didn't have to do this. And, who am I to tell Vince McMahon how to run his company? Like this is his thing. But when it comes to humanity and, putting people out on the street at this time of our life, right? Like, we all know people who have struggled and who have worked for companies, and it sucks. I'm like looking for ways to help friends and stuff, because I don't like to see people in these situations. And I'm thankful that my job is fine, And my health and my family and all that stuff is good. So I'm thankful, but still, I'm just thinking about all these people, not only in WWE, it's just in the world right now who are struggling. And it's the thing that we're so close to because we do podcasts, that it's very easy to go like, oh, I wish it wouldn't have happened this way. Cause then I could see and I could say, you know what, I'm supporting a company that thinks the way that I think and that believes in the things that I believe. And it's just not like that. And so, Vince is a cutthroat businessman, and that's the way he's doing business today. But I think it's open for debate for us to disagree with that and to be frustrated with that, and to just really be bummed for the people who we watch day in and day out, and just sad for them that they have to kind of figure things out like other people that we know in our lives.
Yeah, and to speak to your point about them trying to hit their revenue targets, I don't know if you saw this, but like immediately once the releases started happening, people were screenshotting their stock prices, and you can actually see the WWE stock rising throughout the day, which made me feel super grimy just watching it happen because I was emotional watching all these people get let go, and I don't have any connection to these people, but still, like in these trying times, you think about what they're gonna go through. You look at Mike and Maria, like they have 2 young kids, and like that stuff is heartbreaking. So it's really tough. It's a tough pill to swallow when you see all this happening, and you start to feel kind of dirty because you might think like there might not be like there's some nefarious reasons as to why they're doing this, not so much of like a cost cutting thing. And I think there was reports going around that like WWE actually owned a stake in XFL, which was reportedly not going to happen originally. So that might have been an issue as well. Like they're trying to like cover that cost, but the whole situation, like there's people much smarter than I am that dived into it, that if you guys want to go check it out, please do. But like, it just felt dirty, and it looks like it's going to continue to happen in these coming days. Like I still feel like there's more people to be laid off, especially in NXT, because I think there's only a handful of NXT talent that were actually let go today, but I feel like there's going to be more to come in the next few days, which doesn't make me feel good at all.
Yeah, I mean, look, that they're able to produce their TV. So, that was supposedly one of the things that they were worried about was they wanted to produce their TV so that Fox or USA would still be paying them for the live events, and so at the very least, you're like, okay, if they're gonna skirt these rules and run as an essential business, at least they're going to make the money that they make so that the talent is going to be fine. And that's the opposite of what happened. And it was kind of mind-boggling to me to see them go through all this way on the backs of some of the people who got let go. Like, look, Drake Maverick was supposed to be in this NXT Cruiserweight
he still is
tournament.
Is
he still in it?
Yeah,
so he's still in it.
Which is even more wild. Like he released a video right after he got cut. And said like I'm still gonna do the tournament, and literally I was watching NXT before we hopped on here, and they threw his promo up there like he's gonna be in the tournament.
What is going on?
Well, it's like you have the photo of No Way Jose on an empty plane going to Florida Sunday, and then he's cut on Tuesday like that, or Wednesday. Like it's crazy. Like it really does. I feel for these people that like are putting their health at risk to help this company, and then they get cut like 2 days later. It's
well,
really...
look, WWE is look at the way that they run, look at the way UFC runs. AEW is not exempt from this either. These are all independent contractors. If they wanted to, Seth Rollins was on Instagram Live today talking about, we as the wrestling business have to come together, and we got to support each other, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I get it. It's a good message. Don't try to babyface WWE right now. But at the end of the day, the way that you help the wrestlers is you help them in security. You help them with health insurance. And if you guys were to unionize, the time to unionize literally would have been Vince McMahon goes, hey guys, we're taping WrestleMania, 2 weeks in advance. That's the time to unionize, because he is desperate to get this product in the can so that WrestleMania can happen. But look, they're all of the guys there are so much about, this has been my dream. If you're in the top 10 percentile, you're doing fine. And the bottom 90 percentile, maybe some of them are probably actually doing a lot better now because AEW came along and they were all of a sudden worth more. But you can also just be let go like they are today. Imagine Major League Baseball Players Union or the NBA Players Union. You have a 3-year deal for $45 million, and WWE's like, I know we just signed this 3 months ago, but here's your downside guarantee or whatever, and you're gone. Imagine if you were to do that to an NBA player, fans would go nuts and be like, oh, how can you do that? You signed them to a 3-year deal. But for WWE, the fans overlook that stuff because they, worship the company and it's all about the company does everything right. So it's an interesting way to look at things. That's why, for us, we watch real sports and we can kind of compare what happens when you have a strong players union or when you have a players that are just as important or more important to the actual sport as the people who put the money into it. In wrestling, what is I think the basketball related income, it's like 50-50 between the players and the owners.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
It's right around there, right? In WWE, it's like 10%, less than 10%, something like that. So, the UFC is a little bit better, but they're nowhere near 50%.
Yeah,
right?
Nowhere near.
So just looking at it from that perspective, you really feel for those guys, but it's like, you know what? Maybe it's time. Maybe it's time for you guys to make things better for yourself and use your leverage. And I can bet 100% that it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a huge bummer. We were actually, Jeremy and I were texting when the news came out that there was probably going to be some firings or some releases today, and I was like, well, I don't know how much we could talk about it on the show because there's no names yet. 10 minutes later, like 35 names come across Twitter, and you're just like, I didn't want to see the names, right? You're like, I hope this isn't as bad as like I'm making out to be in my head, and it was just as bad, and it was just so sad. I mean, you had guys like Drake Maverick, literally 3 hours before the announcement, was watching WWE The Bump, supporting the place that he works at, and then again 3 hours later, he's releasing a video just saying like, I just got a call. He's in tears, and it's just heartbreaking. It's just a heartbreaking time, and with all that being said, I guess gut instinct. Do you think that none of the guys and girls who were released today end up in AEW anytime soon?
Zack Ryder and Cody Rhodes are best friends. I expect Zack Ryder to be there at some point.
Okay.
I would sign Anderson and Gallows because I think they're a nice little gateway to New Japan if you want to work with New Japan.
Yep.
They were successful as part of the Bullet Club. They could still do the Bullet Club or a version of the Bullet Club in AEW. The problem is that AEW has a lot of tag teams now. Leo Rush is a guy that I don't know if they would sign because he is historically a knucklehead as far as being in the locker room and not very well liked. If he grows up, he is so dynamic and so talented. He would be awesome. But there are tons of people who are good wrestlers, good hands, who will be successful in other places. But if I'm AEW, I probably am not signing anybody right now because of the uncertainty.
Yep.
And look, they are so lucky that they signed their contract with TNT, which was it was only after a few months where they kind of re-upped it for more money.
Yeah,
the timing was so great for them because if not, like they could be in in some trouble too. I don't think they would be in XFL trouble, obviously, because they're actually putting on a good product. But they're not getting houses. They're not they were expecting a large house for that Blood and Guts show. They're going to run the Double or Nothing pay-per-view. But what does pay-per-view, empty arena pay-per-view mean when you're charging $50 or whatever? Like, I'm trying to figure out what what that's going to look like with these matches for Double or Nothing. So, they're obviously going to be down in their targets as well. And you're really going to see, we've already seen Vince McMahon. I was talking to Dave Meltzer, who's a really good friend of mine. And we were saying right when this thing happened, like literally when Rudy Gobert was patient zero in the NBA, I was at his house and we were watching AEW on TV. And I was like, oh my God. And he goes, the world just changed. And I was like, well, what's going to happen? And so we were talking and we both came to the conclusion that what you're going to see during this really tough time is you're going to see the leadership and you're going to see who the real leaders are and who the real leaders aren't. So, whether it's Tony Khan or Joe Koff with ROH, the TNA folks, the couple people that run that company, we'll see how they deal with these things because, the fact of the matter is you have, when you run a company, you are not only responsible for yourself or for your executives, you're responsible for the lowest person on the totem pole as well. And so, if AEW and a Bellator and a UFC, if they could kind of go through this time and go through unscathed and not have to, drop people who are making not a lot of money because they're worried about that bottom line, great for them. Because if you can look up to your leadership and you believe in your leadership and you see them problem solving in a creative way so that, you're the worst person on or the lowest person on the totem pole is not affected, that's leadership. And it's hard because who knows how long this thing lasts. And, baseball and football and basketball, their times are coming and we'll see what they do because I don't think empty arena basketball or playing baseball in Arizona with players sitting 6 feet away from each other in the stands. I don't think that stuff is going to work, but we'll see how desperate these guys get. Who's been running their business to where they could afford something like this to happen? Probably not a lot of people. This is just so unexpected.
I mean, the UFC is looking to do Fight Island. That's where we're at right now. Like, it's difficult.
Yeah, they have a card for May 9th.
Yeah.
And I think the expectation is that Nevada pulls back on the gatherings of more than 10 people or whatever, and I think that's Dana's hope is that they change that starting in May, and if they do, then he can run out of his Apex Center, and if they don't, then he's probably following Vince to Florida. I think.
Yeah, that's what I've seen is that he wants to do Florida if he can't do Fight Island. I mean, he is dead set on wanting to do Fight Island for whatever reason. But yeah, I mean, if they run it in Nevada, they'll probably do it at the Apex. There's also the card that they were supposed to do. What was it, last weekend or this weekend? It was supposed to happen at Tai Chi Palace, which is in California. So I mean, they're dead set on running some sort of show. I feel for the fighters though, especially the ones that have been on the different cards here and there, because they're cutting weight too. So they're having to cut weight, and then they're not fighting, and then they're maybe putting weight back on and having to cut weight again. It's just, I feel for those guys. This whole situation sucks though, and we'll see how things kind of shake out in the next few months. Yeah,
no, absolutely, and it's definitely a day. I think I tweeted this out earlier. It was just, I've loved wrestling my whole life, and today is just one of those days where you just didn't enjoy it. It's just, you just didn't enjoy being a fan, because if you cared less, maybe you might care less about all these people kind of losing their jobs. And hopefully this is I mean, it's likely not the last that we're going to hear about stuff like this happening, but hopefully it's not too many more in the future. Double G, Garrett, thank you so much for hopping on the show, man, dropping the knowledge left and right. Tell everyone where they can find you. Tell them about the pod. Tell them where they can follow you on the socials. Give them all the good stuff.
The Fight Game Podcast, you can follow us on Fight Game Media on Twitter. That's the Twitter handle at Fight Game Media. All the podcasts are posted there. Also, fightgamemedia.com. All the information is there for podcasts, and we have articles up there as well. So for my personal social, I'll spell it out, and then I will tell you if you're wondering why that is my personal social handle. the pinned tweet has the story, but it's spelled Roheblius. That's where you can find me. I will probably also, in addition to the Fight Game podcast with me and my partner John LaRocca, I'm probably going to be doing a Wrestling Observer Radio with Dave Meltzer at some point this weekend too. So if you're a subscriber, heads up on that. But yeah, just, we have time to do stuff. And, when I can turn off my computer for my real job, then, and when outside of hanging out with my fiance and her kids, then my other passion is doing this stuff. So I enjoy it. And I'm glad that you guys invited me on. And, I'm glad to see us with some Blue Wire synergy. I love it. Keep kicking butt, guys.
You too, man. This won't be the last time. We'll have you on again soon.
Absolutely.
Thanks, dude.
All right. Thank you.
A big thank you again to Double G from the Fight Game podcast. Always love talking to that dude. Obviously, it's the first time we've had him on this show, but we've our text conversations and our Blue Wire Slack, or I'm sorry, Microsoft Teams channel is always a lot of fun just talking wrestling. Before we head on to the back end of our show here, we're going to talk about our friends over at Bet Online. With currently no NBA, NHL, or MLB, you might think there's nothing to bet on. Well, you'd be wrong. Our exclusive partner, Bet Online, still has hundreds of events, games, and props to wager on. From their online casino to poker and blackjack, they're bringing Vegas to you. Missing the NFL? No problem. Bet Online has live, daily matted NFL 20 simulations that you can bet on.
You can still bet on Survivor, Big Brother, American Idol, stock prices, and even the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. All open 24 hours a day and all online. Use promo code BLUEWIRE to join today and receive your new welcome bonus. Bet Online, your online wagering solution. All right, so let's jump into the Wednesday Night Wars. Not a whole bunch to talk about, but there was a much anticipated debut tonight on NXT. Our boy, Killer Cross.
Hold up. That's not his name. Say his name correctly.
No, I refuse to say his name. His name is terrible. All right. So we all know and love him as Killer Cross. In the WWE, he is now known as Karrion Kross. Yikes. If they change Scarlett Bordeaux's name, I'm going to throw a fist.
Well, they can't because she's already debuted, right?
Well, I mean, they could do whatever they want.
Yeah, that's true. They've been changing active guys' names.
But the debut was actually quite shocking to me because if you remember, after NXT TakeOver, they showed him in the car eyeballing Johnny Gargano. Well, he attacked Tommaso Ciampa. I thought he was going to go for the winner, but whatever. I'm down for Killer Cross versus Tommaso Ciampa. I think that'd be fucking awesome. I like the introduction of Scarlett as well. The way they introduced them was Tommaso was on the floor. If you guys haven't seen it yet, and then you see Scarlett's like patent leather boot.
Yep.
Come through, and then Killer is just like full killer mode, breathing, spreading that COVID-19 face-to-face contact.
He took an aggressive COVID-19 test before that segment.
But I am super jacked for this. We've been waiting for this.
No, I was pleasantly surprised that he went after Ciampa, but it also kind of makes sense because I think if it was him and Scarlett taking on Johnny and Candice, that'd be almost like a heel thing, which I guess wouldn't have made a ton of sense. And I think they're riding this Ciampa thing out where he's a babyface for a while longer. Clearly, that's clearly the decision that they made. But it does make for an interesting matchup. The great thing is it would have been great either way, right? Either way they went, it would have been very, very good. It was just like you said, it was surprising to see him do it in the fashion that it happened too, because Ciampa was just cutting this promo in the back, and all of a sudden he got he looked like he got murdered.
Yeah, it was pretty aggressive. I also liked the way that he closed the show by just saying TikTok in his face.
Yeah.
I love this angle that they're going with. I think it gives them a monster heel to work with that a lot of fans know and that have respect for the work that he's done. And Scarlett is incredible.
Yep.
Like she's great. Her work in Impact Wrestling was phenomenal.
Yep.
So I'm really looking forward to this. Hopefully we can kind of build this out for a little bit longer. Maybe he even maybe he doesn't feud with Tommaso. Maybe he's attacking both of them, and he just like that way it brings them back together in a way. Like ultimately they're going to want to bring Tommaso and Johnny Gargano back together in some way,
in some capacity,
sort of fashion.
Yeah.
So what if Killer Cross is just attacking both of them and being that nuisance? But we'll see how this plays out. I'm just really excited that he's actually on TV. Shifting gears a little bit, we did have a tease for what is next for Velveteen Dream. It looks like with Adam Cole currently on at home, just not wrestling. So we're gonna get Finn Balor versus Velveteen Dream, and I cannot fucking wait.
Yes, please. Look, I've wanted to see Dream Cole for a long time now, and obviously that has kind of come to a halt because of everything that's happened. But if there was any consolation prize that they were going to offer, Finn Balor is a pretty damn good consolation prize.
And they had to figure out something for Finn Balor too, because he can no longer take on Walter. He can't wrestle Walter for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So why not have him thrust into the NXT Championship picture, which he was going to be in eventually anyways.
Yeah.
And now you could potentially, once everything, you can have these two feuded out for a little bit, kind of take over for the next few months until this thing kind of clears up a little bit, or until they figure out what they can do. And then when things kind of get back to normal or close to normal, because things are never going to be normal again, we can have the triple threat of Dream, Finn Balor, Adam Cole, and that's a banger.
Dude,
that's
that's an incredible takeover match. Obviously, it may have come together under not the best of circumstances, because I do think if everything was normal, that Finn Walter thing, I think they could have extended that a while. They could have you could have had Finn Walter for a long time. Finn eventually wins it, and then you can have the Finn challenges the NXT champion, and then you can have whoever wins as the UK and normal NXT champion. Exactly.
2 belts. There's just scenarios there that play out that are just so mind-boggling. That would be incredible. But obviously the COVID situation just threw a wrench into everything.
Yeah.
And then lastly, just want to touch on some AEW tidbits. The big thing was just that Mox defeated Jake Hager in what I figured was a pretty bad match. They needed a crowd in the worst way. I just don't like those two working together. I don't think Jake Hager has what it takes to keep up with Mox at this stage. Obviously, if it was Jake Hager who was kind of in his prime when it came to in-ring wrestling, I think there might have been an interesting match there, but now I just don't think he can hang with him. And we all just want to see something else for Mox. I'm tired of Mox versus the Inner Circle, to be honest with you. I want to see Mox facing somebody else.
They gotta move away from that, and I think it will eventually. Jericho's kind of found his new thing, and he's
Can we talk about Jericho and how gold he is for AEW?
Yes. Jesus,
always. Man, that guy, everything he touches in that company,
he can do anything.
Gold.
It's just wild to me how he's. This is kind of a side tangent, but just kind of reinvented himself over and over and over again, and every time it's super effective. This is obviously a smaller version of a reinvention, right? Him just being on the commentary booth, but fire dude's just dropping gems left and right,
being open to joining. Excuse me, I guess I'm fighting off a sneeze. Joining the Matt Hardy situation and wanting to do an elite deletion match and really leaning into the absurdity of what Matt Hardy does. That's incredible. His Le Champion gimmick was incredible. There were people shitting on him in AEW and becoming the first AEW champ, and they just don't realize what he's meant to that company. He legitimized that belt. He made that belt. He's done everything that he could to make that company, and he's just every time he goes to work for them, he's putting on an incredible performance. He is one of the best of all time. He is so good.
Yeah, he's I don't think that's even debatable anymore. I was one of those people who questioned putting him as your first champion, and mainly because I think I compared it to it was just very similar to what WWE was doing with Brock, and just kind of giving it to the horse that instead of kind of giving it to the future, which was at that time Hangman Adam Page, right? So it was I was wrong, flat out, because this dude is fucking incredible. And he deserves all the good stuff that he's that is coming his way. I think that feud with Matt Hardy is going to be incredible.
I cannot wait for that match because I'm like I want to see what they can do because I know for a fact Matt Hardy wants to top the Boneyard match. He wants to show like he could do and his creativity and kind of shove it to Vince and like really shove it up his ass and just say like, hey, this is what you missed. If you were going to start doing this is what you missed out on.
Yep.
And I think they're going to do something like just off the wall crazy.
Absolutely. All right, that's definitely it for our segment on the Wednesday Night Wars and actually the show. We're gonna wrap up here. Just again, we talked a lot about it with Garrett, but again, it was just a bummer of a day, and I hope that all those people land on their feet, in whether it's back with WWE eventually, kind of once all this stuff clears out, or with AEW, with Ring of Honor, with New Japan, just the stuff that I think we've started to see kind of as all these documentaries and everything that's come out, how hard it is to get there and everything you have to sacrifice to do what they do, to the way they put their bodies on the line to get there, and then every night thereafter. They don't get enough credit, to kind of call back to something Garrett was talking about earlier. Like, the easy thing to do is just call what these people do fake. What's not fake is the fact that they lost their dream job, right?
Yep.
And
they lost their livelihood today.
Yeah.
Like, what you could do today to support those people is go to pro wrestling tees, go
Buy
find
shirts.
a spot where you can buy their shirt, buy their merch. Every little bit helps. This is going to be some tough times coming ahead for these people and for everybody. I mean, I don't think we've seen the worst of it. So, I mean, just reach out. If you know somebody that's going through a tough time, reach out to them, give them a call. If you can afford it, maybe reach out and buy a shirt, do something. Every little bit helps.
Absolutely. Well, thanks as always for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you download your podcasts. And if you're one of our fantastic Apple Podcast users, please, please, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And if you're feeling spicy, leave a review.
And if you leave a 1-star review for us, that's fine. But please make sure that's factual because the 1-star review that we got was bullshit.
Well, dude, yeah. So for those of you who are unaware, I discovered that we finally got our first 1-star review, which I actually kind of appreciate because, like, I look at all the people who do this, right? And
everybody has haters.
Everyone has a hater, and we didn't have any yet. We had the person who's kind of lukewarm on us, and I was like, damn, we haven't pissed anyone off to the point of like hating us. Someone said that all we do is like we're just WWE fans. Okay, first of all, we spend probably 60 to 70% of the show complaining about WWE.
Yeah, they said all we do is trash everything that's not WWE. I was like, if anything, it's the total opposite.
Yeah, it's the opposite. So if you're gonna send some shade, at least be accurate about it. Like, that's all we're asking, you know?
Yeah, just be factual in your hate.
Yes,
and
exactly.
we'll accept it.
Exactly.
All right, make sure you follow us on social too. Follow us at 2 Jabronis Pod on Instagram and on Twitter. You can also follow us at 2 Jabronis Pod in the BR app. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Jeremy A. Loss, and you can follow Ben at Cruise Control. That's control with a K.
All right, everyone. We will see you next week. Don't be a jabroni. Keep washing your hands. Keep staying home. And everyone,
stay safe, everybody.
Stay safe. Peace.
Bye.